So sorry. So yes, these categories are all Oracle standard, and we cannot able to create new categories, but we can just create contents against each of these categories. So let us see how let us first see how to create a new content item. So before we talk about content item, we have to understand one thing, right? In Fusion, in most of the setups, okay, except for few setups, most of the setups we can create one object, and then if we wanted to make some changes to that object, right, we can create multiple versions within that object. So what is the advantage of using this version functionality is that if we start using this version functionality, so let's say I create an content. I created an content for employee description, and then I have used that content in like let's say I have used it in some hundreds of requisitions. Tomorrow, the customer, due to branding or restructure or reorganization, due to some reasons, the employer name has changed. So now, if I wanted to update this employer name in all the employer descriptions, so what normally what happens is we'll come to that particular object, employee description object, and then we'll create a new version, and in the new version, we'll just change the names. Then what will happen? All the places where we have used this particular object, all those places, the content will be automatically updated. So that's the biggest advantage of using the versions. Unlike in certain components in recruiting module, we cannot. There is no versions. So far. One such component is the candidate selection process. So once we create a candidate selection process and once we activate it, its job is done. We cannot able to make any changes to it. I mean, we can do some changes, but if we wanted to restructure the entire component, then we cannot able to do that. Then we have to create a new object, and then we have to create new records. So that's a different logistical challenges we have. But this is the advantage of creating the using the objects with the version controls. So what we'll do is let us create one employee description, and then we'll see how to create an object and then how to create multiple versions against it. So in order to create, there are two ways how we can able to create an object in the content library. First method is like we can take any one of the object. Let's say for example, if I take, or rather than employee description, let me just take automated job application expression. So there are two ways through which we can create content in the content library. First method is like, we can take any one of the existing object, and then we can create a new content from this particular version, object. That means all the content which is there in this object will be automatically copied, and then, a new content is created. So here, if you see, you will see this copy and all the contents are automatically added. So this is one way to create an content here. And the second way is from scratch creation, which is like you will just click on the create button, and then we have to give a name to it. So what I'll do is, so we can just use we will give a name and then the code. The reason why I use underscores in the name is because I can just copy paste the same name, and then any components which we create, right, we normally have an prefix here. Okay. So since like I'm doing it for geeks, right, and I use this prefix UNO. And then in real time, what will happen is, in real time situations, we normally whenever we create any custom components, okay, we prefix it with the customer name, customer code. Okay. So we prefix with the customer code, like for example, if the customer name is Oracle, like, we normally use like, OR, ORA or something like that, right? So if it is TCS, we normally put TCS underscore. So that's how we normally use that. The reason being is that, if I wanted to filter out all the custom created components, then this will help us to sort, filter, and, for identification purpose, it would be easy. Next, once we give the name and the code, and next we have to choose the category. So before we go to the category, for the code, it is a common behavior across Fusion. Code cannot have spaces. So if I give some space, then when I try to activate this file, the system throws an error. And some pages, the system does not throw an error because there are certain bugs in certain very few limited pages. So as a best practice, we normally don't use any space or special characters in the code. So once we give the name and the code, next we have is the category. So here, once I click on the category, we can able to see all the categories which are available. Okay. So based on the category, all the remaining contents will be updated. For example,
Spaces can be allowed within name.
yeah, with the name, yes. And the reason as I said, right, the reason why I have not put space in the name is because, you will see this behavior of mine, across the training sessions. The reason being is that I'll just type once and then I'll just paste it, in the name and code. Just
Okay,
in
and
the,
can be same, right? Or
sorry,
it needs to be different. Name and code should be same, or it needs to be different.
nothing, it's up to our decision.
Okay.
I can have like, UNO Java application and in the code, like, I can have something else. Let's say, for example, I can just ABC underscore, I can put some numbers also. There is no link
Yeah,
between your
but
name
just
and the code.
it's same. Okay, and does
See,
the
but
Mhm.
logically, what we do is normally we maintain certain similarities between name and code. Okay? Because
Mhm.
that way, right, it will have some just a logical purpose. That's it. It's not from the product perspective. There's no limitations or restrictions. Okay? You can have any name, you can have any code. But for easy identification, right, we normally keep something relevant to the names.
Yeah, okay. And does two content library can have the same name? The
Yes,
code
we
must
can
be
have, yeah, the name can be same, but the code cannot be same.
okay. Mhm. And in code, I see the name is coming till notification. Is it because of some limitations on number of characters?
Yes, in this is common behavior across Fusion application. Okay, so the name, right, though it does not allow this long name, but the characters in the name is larger than the number of characters available in the code. So for code across the Fusion, there is always a limitation.
Okay, okay, okay.
So once we enter the name and code, the next thing what we want to do is we have to choose the category. So based on category, all the remaining sections will change accordingly. For example, if I choose employer description, you will see only this particular content here. You will see only one content here. And if I choose candidate job application notification, you will see different objects here. So this is based on the categories, all these values comes up. Okay? So what we'll do is we'll just create a job application notification and then we'll move accordingly. So once you choose the category, next you have to choose the visibility. So whether this object you wanted to use it only for external candidates or internal candidates or for both. There could be a lot of scenarios, lot of components, right, which you wanted to use only for your internal candidates. I mean, if you're sending your a message to your internal candidates, a email to your internal candidates, you don't start with dear candidate. You say dear employee. Right? When you send it to an external candidates, you start with dear candidate. Right? So, and then again, the content could be completely different based on your candidate type. Right? So accordingly, you can create your own object. So once you choose your visibility, the next section you have is the messaging. So what is the use of this messaging? And this messaging section is not visible for all the categories. For example, if I just go back to my old example of employer description, you see this particular box is disabled. That means this functionality is not available for the employer description. But if I just go to candidate job application, and whenever you try to change your category, right, you keep getting this warning message. What if the message says that any contents which you have given below, right, that would be removed with the moment you change your job category, content category answer. So now coming back to this the messaging, huh, what is the use of it? Let's say this content is like we are sending some message to a candidate. Okay? So through an automated messages or some way we are sending some email to the candidates. And if you want to capture this email against the candidate record, then we have to select this checkbox. Once you check this, select this checkbox, you can configure how you want this content to be captured. Okay? If you wanted to just capture only the notification body, you can able to do that. Or these are the different tokens here. So what is a token? So the tokens, we will be using this terminology tokens very often going forward, right? We will sit in the content library in the below when we configure, we will be using it. And in the job offer letter templates, we will be using these tokens very often, across the application, across the module. So what is a token? So token is a system name given for an object. So in a real time, what happens is when you run this particular object, the tokens would be replaced with the actual content. Let's say, for example, I have a token called notification subject, and then below I'll give one subject line. Stands for applying with the
Yeah, quick question, Harish. Why that
yes,
block was disabled for the employer notification or for
because
employer description?
yeah, employee. See, where are we? See, the employee description, we are going to use it in the requisition. We are going to use it against the requisitions section,
Okay,
right?
okay.
And there is no interaction with the candidate. I mean, this
Mm-hmm.
is not related to the candidate data. Hence, the capture message box is disabled. So this capture message box would be enabled only for the objects for where we are sending a notification to the candidates, whether internal or external. That's where, because all this data, right? When we select this capture message, this data would be stored against the candidate job applications. We'll see
Okay.
that once we go into the application. See,
Mm-hmm.
for example, in Talio, I remember we have something called a send message, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when you send a message to the candidate, will it be captured against candidate job application? It will be captured somewhere in the job application. Correct?
Correct, yes.
Yeah. So the same way here, right? When we automatically send a message to the candidate, we don't need to manually, do anything. It will be automatically captured against the candidate data. We'll see that, once we go to the job applications, we'll see that.
Sure.
So now let's say when I use this token, notification subject, then when this message is sent to the candidate, the subject line, whatever we mentioned in the below, right, that would be the token would be replaced with this content. And then let's say I wanted to add subject line. So I'll just choose the token and then I click on insert. So now in the message content, the notification subject is added. And then in the next line, I wanted to add notification body. I cannot. So let's say, for example, this is the body, right? So if I send some message, something like this, then this notification body token would be replaced as test, and then the data would be stored in the candidate job application. So that's the purpose of this messaging. So we'll just keep it for now, and then we'll test it in the real time and see how it goes. Next, we have this contacts information. Contacts information again. This
Just one
particular
quick question. So, do we
yes,
have
please.
any flexibility to add some more tokens? Like
No.
here, I don't see any attachment related token, right?
Yeah. See, basically we cannot add any tokens. These are like Oracle standard. And the second thing is like we don't have an attachment option
Yes.
in this content library. We cannot able to add attachments. But there is a workaround which we'll talk about it later. See,
Okay.
most of the functionalities, we almost all the functionalities we have. Certain places there are certain functionalities which we don't have in the Fusion application, okay? And those functions, right, those functionalities, which is not available, there are certain workarounds for it. Okay? So,
Okay.
I mean, for example, right, to talk about it, the attachments, right, we don't have an option to add an attachment here. Okay. But the customer says, Harish, we wanted to send some attachments to the candidate along with this. Then what we do is like, here we have an option to insert an URL. So what we normally do is we'll ask the customer to, store those content or, the attachments, okay, in some SharePoint sites, in a company domain SharePoint sites, and then generate the URL. Okay. But if the customer says, Harish, we cannot do that. That's like a breach to our security policies. We cannot do that. Then what we do is in Fusion, we have something called as content server. Those are like little advanced level, but just giving you the terminologies are like workarounds.
Mm-hmm.
Because this what you asked, right? This could be some questions which you may get from your customer when you work on ORC, or maybe in your interviewer may ask. So what
Yeah.
is the workaround? So in the content server, right? Content server basically that's a backend screens. Okay, we can still access it from the Fusion, right? So, after the pod name, this is the pod name, right? So if I just /cs. This is the content server. Yeah, we can also call it as web center content, or we call it as content server. So this is a place where all the files which is getting uploaded to Fusion, right? Whatever the files, your resumes or or cover letters or interview feedback forms, or like your document of records, any attachment which is getting inside the Fusion will be stored in this particular content server. And since I said that, if you ask me, Harish, can we access all this content? No, we don't have access to all those contents, but certain contents we can able to access from this content server. Okay? So now coming back to your attachment question. So if the customer says that, Rizwan, we wanted to add an attachment along with this notification, and then we cannot use the SharePoint because of the IT security policies, then what we do is we will, in the content server, we can create a new content here. So I can just click on new check-in, and then I can create an object, and then I can add the file here. For example, here. So I can just add a file here. Once we add a file here, right, then, a static URL gets generated for this particular file. And then we take that URL, come
Yeah,
here,
that
and
can take and put it within email body, right? Mm-hmm.
yes. So that's a workaround we have.
Okay.
So that's how we can able to add attachments. Is it clear?
Yeah, it's clear. Thank you.
Sure. So now that we saw about this, next what we'll do is we will see about contacts information. Contacts information, you will see that across a lot of screens in the recruiting module. Okay? We will see it in the content library, we will see it in the pre-screening questions, we will see it in candidate selection process, job application flows, interviews. You will see this, a lot of lot in most of the screens in the in recruiting module. You will see this contacts information. What is in contacts information? To keep it, to explain it in a very simple layman terms, right? These are basically a parameters for using this, a prerequisites for using this particular object. Okay? So these are the different sections which we have. Okay? Let's say, we have one functionality in recruiting module, which is the recruiting type. Okay? So this I can have, these are like, Oracle standard 5 recruiting types we have. Let's say I wanted to use this, job application notification only for the requisitions which is created for campus hiring. I can choose campus hiring. Then what will happen is only for campus hiring notifications, this would be displayed or this can be used. If I create a requisition which is for professional or lateral hiring, then this particular object will not come in the list of values. So that's the purpose of this context. So let's say we can use organization. Remember in yesterday when we went into the enterprise recruiting setup, we saw an organization tree, right? So if we wanted to use this for any specific organization, then we can use that also. Or if the customer says, Harish, we have a presence in 5 different countries. I wanted to have different content for each country, then you can use locations.
Okay, yeah. We can select n number of locations here. Okay.
Yes, you can choose multiple objects as well. For example,
Mm-hmm. Just keep adding. Okay.
we have to just keep adding. And then you have job family, job function. These two are basically like, the data, these two data are available in the job, which is, through if we create a requisition using a job or position, then these two contacts informations can be used. And if you don't give any of these contacts, then this particular data will be available for all the requisitions.
Okay. Got it.
Next, we have is version details. Version details, this is the place where we will, start entering the actual data. So first section which we have is start date. So here you can define from which date you wanted this object to be available. So let's say I want this object to be available from 26th of February, then I can choose the start date and time. Or let's say I wanted to start using this object the moment I create this content, then I can choose the checkbox start on activation.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have the subject line, and then we have message text. So here we can start drafting the notification content. And just like how we saw the token here, we have tokens which we can use in the email body as a subject line. If I click on the tokens here you will see a huge list of tokens. Let's say, for example, I wanted to in the email body, I wanted to add this token. So I'll just click on insert, and then you will see this three options. So let's see if I just choose insert in the message text, I put job application name. So then this requisition title, when this notification is triggered against some candidate job application, right? Then the job application name would be automatically replaced here. And then let's see if I wanted to add a number.
Okay, is this token for adding requisition related field to the email notification?
You see, it's not only about the requisition related. There are a lot of other details as well. For example, let me just so let's say I put like dear, and then I wanted to put the candidate name, first name. So what I'll do is here in the token, I'll see candidate first name,
Mm-hmm.
and then I'll click on insert. So I'll put dear candidate first name. Thanks for
Okay, we
applying
can put
to the
candidate. Mm-hmm.
below requisition. And then next to it, the customer says, Harish, I wanted to mention, the name of the recruiter for this particular requisition. Then what I'll do is in the tokens, requisition, I'll choose this. So this will replace with the recruiter name. Will
Okay.
reach out to you for more details. So we have tokens for multiple components. We have for candidate related data, we can bring in the token, and then the job offer related, or like the job requisition related. Okay. So you can mention like the hiring manager name, email ID, title, and then the requisition related data you can bring in, and then you can also bring in like the recruiter, all those informations. And just like how we saw, in the tokens here, these tokens are Oracle seeded, and we cannot able to customize it. We cannot able to add any new tokens or delete anyone.
Okay. Actually, Harish, I'm just little bit confused about the subject in message text. This block came up in the above section as well, right?
Yeah. So above section here, we are adding the token for this particular token of the section. So when we say notification subject, then when this email is triggered to the candidate, okay,
Mm-hmm.
this in the candidate message, this data, whatever you see in the subject, would be put as the first line.
Okay. Uh-huh.
And then in the second
The
line, the
structure of our
notification body.
entire email notification. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, got it. Yeah, one more question here. So similar to the requisition related context, I don't see any candidate selection process context here.
Candidate
Like,
selection process, no, we
no, no,
cannot
no,
see.
no, not here. Like in the above, which is working like this context information. Here you can see recruiting type. If the recruiting
Correct.
type campus, this notification can be triggered to the only campus related requisition. But let's say if we want to trigger this notification based on some step and statuses of candidate selection process, that kind of info where we can add that kind of filter.
That we cannot add as well. So we cannot define an CSP, the selection process based. We cannot do that here. But whenever you move a candidate to a specific state, phase, and state in the selection process, and if you wanted to automatically send a notification,
Mm-hmm.
then we'll see. We can do that. Okay, we'll see how to do that, but we'll see that when we go to the selection process.
Mm-hmm. Okay, okay.
So
Yeah.
this here in the screen, we are just seeing how the prerequisites basically.
Okay, okay. Mm-hmm.
So once you enter the message text, and then the most important thing is this message text is in rich text editor. Okay? That means you can do all kind of formattings here. You can add images, you can add URLs, formatting, font size, font, color, all those things. And then let's say if the customer has like a lot of cosmetics work in the email text, right? Then they can create an email. They can create the content in an HTML and then bring and paste this HTML content here. And then once you click on this message, rich text editor mode, then based on the HTML, the data will be automatically generated. So there is a difference between a rich text editor and a plain box. So we just saw this is a rich text editor, and the below you see SMS text. Let's say if you have enabled an SMS integration, then you can send an SMS to the candidate as well. Let's say I'll choose the same here, and then here I'll just mention thanks for thanks. Okay, my application is see the recruiter will check to you if any additional input is needed. Because okay. See, here, right, SMS fix. So what happens is, let's say I have a candidate who has applied to the job requisition using their email ID. Okay, then system will automatically pick, the email content here. Let's say I have a second candidate who has applied to the job requisition using mobile number. Then system will automatically pick, the SMS text. Let's say the candidate has applied through email, and then later the candidate wants to change his communication preference method from email to SMS. Then, so based on the candidate's communication preference method, this objects would be picked accordingly. And then if you notice, like certain places, right, I avoid using an enter in the SMS text, especially here, right? The reason being is that if I give an enter, that consumes one character, and then SMS basically by default, most of the vendors, what happens is they give you only 180 characters. So one space, one comma, whatever you type, right? Every single move in the message is counted as one character. So just for just to make sure, like the 180 character count is not crossed, we sometimes do all this kind of cosmetic works to maintain the character count. If it crosses 180, let's assume if it is 181 characters, then 2 credits would be taken from the customer balance. So that's why we normally try to restrict the characters here. And then in real time scenario, we will never use any tokens in the SMS text because the candidate name could be, 5 letters or 10 letters. It could be, the name may change. So now we don't use the tokens also in the SMS text. So this is about the content library. Uh, so once we drafted all those details, we can
At
just
any point, does it possible that both this email template and SMS text will be triggered to the same candidate?
no,
No, right? Because preference can be only one.
correct.
Okay.
Okay. So once you enter all those details, you can keep the content as a draft, or you can click on the as action, action button, and you will see this save and activate. So once I click on save and activate, this particular content is now created, and then you will see the status of this message is current. And let's say in Fusion, right, Fusion supports multilingual. We saw that in the first session. So we can, we can have multiple languages enabled for our Fusion. Yeah, sorry. So we can have, multilingual content. So now that, let's assume the customers are from, GCC country, which is Middle East. Okay. So let's say the customer says, Harish, we wanted to, send the content in Arabic. So, the customer, we can enable career sites in Arabic language. So whenever the candidates, applies to any of the requisitions from, the particular, language, right? Then those particular related language contents would be automatically triggered. So the customer says, Harish, we wanted to create Arabic content for the same. Then you see this, Earth-like icon here that we call it as translation editor. So you can just click on the translation editor, and then you can able to provide contents, translations. Okay. So to do that, what I'll do is I'll just click on actions, and then I'll click on copy to create new version. So basically now I'm creating a new version. And when I create a new version, that's when system, okay, first let me just save this draft. Okay. Now this is in draft mode. And when I click on the translation editor, I can able to provide the translations. For example, let's say I wanted to provide translations in Arabic. So I'll just click on this editor, text editor. So now what I'll do is, this is some SMS one. Let me just take message text here. So what I'll do is, I'll just copy. What I'll do is let me just copy this. What we normally do is, we'll just go to translate.google.com, or normally customer gives us the data, and then
Okay.
I'll change it to Arabic, and then we normally copy this content, come back to the content library, and then we paste it. Okay. So now since it is for Arabic, right, the dollar symbol has to be moved to this area.
Okay.
Hmm. To do that also. So in the previous version, I mean, 6, 7 months back, we had that issue. Now I think so. Now
Oh,
we can just paste the content here like this. So if in case if the candidate has applied to the requisition, or if the language preference method for the candidate is Arabic, then this particular Arabic content will be created. Okay. And then the most important thing is like, here you can see all these languages here. Okay. And if you ask me, Harish, do all the instances have all these languages? Yes, all the instances will have all the language, but it depends on your customer to customer. Okay. So this are basically what we call it as language packs. Okay. So basically the language packages. So the customers has to enable this language packages. Okay. Or basically they have to procure this language packages when they get instance from Oracle. Okay. So normally, as part of the initial Oracle signing up, right, on the agreement, so that time itself they will decide if they want to have multilingual. So whenever I do a project for any Middle East GCC customers, right, most of them would like to prefer Arabic. And then when it comes to Asia, like Singapore, right, then they normally prefer to have simplified Chinese, traditional Chinese, and then based on the countries again. Okay. If it is US, Mexico, then they will expect Spanish, and then Netherlands they will expect the a Danish. So things like based on the countries, customers will have the languages, and then the customers have to provide this translations. And if you take any Oracle seeded data, for example, let me just activate it, and then I'll just click on draft. And then here, now that we have just created a new version, you will see the old version here which says ended. Or let's say I'll just copy to create new version, and then here I am gonna let's say I will choose future data. And then you see this is current, and then you will also see this future. You see this icon here, it is now in green color with the arrow left to right.
Yes, yes.
So that's how the future data status would look like. And then when you come back to the content here, right, so here you can see that there are three versions here. We had one ended, one current, and then one in the future data. So now here, if I take any Oracle seeded contents, this is some Oracle seeded one. Let me just check. This is custom one. Yeah. So this is an Oracle seeded data. If you see, all Oracle seeded contents will have the translations automatically there. Based on the languages, the translations are automatically given. Greek, Hebrew, Hungarian, Japanese. So any seeded data you take, the translations will be there, automatically. So the translations has to be provided mainly for the custom data. For the seeded data, we don't need to worry about it. Sometimes what happens is like, let's say if the customers are from, Egypt, these are like some real-time, challenges we had in my past experience. So just like, in India, right, if you take Hindi, for example, right, you have different versions of Hindi here. If you go to Bihar state, right, the Hindi which they speak is different. And then in Delhi, they have a different version. And then, if you take any languages, for example, you take Telugu, right? In Hyderabad, we speak different Telugu. And then if you go to, Andhra, then, they have a different Telugu. If you go to Tamil Nadu, they will have a different Telugu. So we all will have different versions, right? So similarly in Arabic, in the respective countries also, they will have different versions. So in one of my projects, what happened is the customers are from Egypt. Okay. So the Arabic, what we use here, these are like, the general Arabic ones. But when it comes to Egypt, they have more, they have a little different version of Arabic which they use. So they say like, Harish, we wanted to, change certain words, then we can come and make those changes only for the seeded data also. And
Okay.
again, with another instance, what has happened is I was with the customer who had the presence in UAE, Saudi, Egypt, and Jordan. Okay. So all four are like, again, Arabic countries, and all four countries has their own versions of language. And then they asked me, Harish, is there a way for each of this country, can we have different versions of Arabic? That is not possible. Arabic as a language, it is one.
Yes, yes, that's correct.
So these kind of challenges, this kind of topics normally comes up, but this is how we can able to handle it. So this is all about the content library.